completely surrounded!
We're completely fucked! Are you girls kidding me? I've been praying for this shit! Come on!
Hey guys, what's up? It's Snake, and I got some more zombie storyline for you. I know you've been waiting a long time, and I've kind of been dragging my feet a little bit with this, but we finally made it. Here we are, up in the middle of Siberia, in Call of the Dead. And before we start talking about 2011 and these four famous actors turned zombie killers, first we're going to backtrack to 1871, when a person by the name of Edward Bulwer Lytton, a very famous novelist of the time, wrote, I guess you could call it his most controversial and strange of all of his science fiction novels, and it was called Vril, The Power of the Coming Race. Now, Edward was famous for several things, including some of his most famous sayings, pursuit of the almighty dollar, the pen is mightier than the sword, and of course his most famous, well, not just his most famous, but possibly one of the most famous opening lines in any story, it was a dark and stormy night. So obviously he's pretty big, aside from the fact that he wrote this novel, and so we can sort of see why the Nazis and Hitler were interested in his works, when Hitler finally rose to power. Because like I said before in earlier videos, Hitler was really big into all this strange occult stuff and the idea of higher powers and just anything that would help him figure out a way to change the world into what he thought was the right way to live. So let's get past all that real life stuff and start talking about the book itself. Now the book goes through is told from the point of view of the narrator, who is an independently wealthy man who travels the world, just looking around, just seeing what he can see. And one of the things he comes across is, oddly enough, he accidentally stumbles upon this previously undiscovered entrance to a cavern that leads to this giant underground working of tunnels and caves and just an entire society that he finds underground in northern Asia. And it's this society is a technologically based society known as the vrilya. And the vrilya are these angel-like creatures that are like 7 feet tall, and he believes them to be either descendants or in some way related to the ancient Aryan race of old, which lived up in the mountains in Siberia and other places throughout northern Asia and parts of Eastern Europe. So these vrilya, they're both telepathic and telekinetic beings who gain much of their power. Much of their power through this all-permeating liquid known as the vril. And the vril is this sort of bioluminescent liquid that is said to give off such bright yet gentle light, like even brighter than that of the luminiferous ether, which of course at the time when this book is written, there was a theory that the light that we see in the sky from the sun exists in this ether, this sort of what we call now space. Of course, it's this ether that sort of traps the light coming off of the sun, and that's what gives us our daylight. Not directly the sun itself, but this ether trapping the sun's rays, which of course isn't true. But I thought I'd mention that, of course, because they called that the ether as well, just like we have the ether that they talk about in Derice, the place that Sam is supposed to exist. And I call it in a lot of my videos sort of a sub-dimension or a parallel dimension to our own. Now, these guys use the vril, the power of the vril, for both good and bad things. It can be used for great destruction as well as great healing. And a lot of times the women or the female figures in their society use it in that sense for healing, for obviously for giving birth, for bringing new life into the world and things like that. Now, one of the interesting things about this race, the narrator says, is that eventually they're going to run out of space. And these, even though they're sort of peace-loving creatures, so to speak, At the same time, if once they run out of space below, they're going to come up to the surface, and instead of trying to figure out a way to live and work with us, they're just going to eradicate all living, well, all living sentient beings on the planet and take over. Now, with the power of vril, through vril, they had the power over everything, all matter and elements, anything both animate and inanimate, like inanimate dead flesh. The other thing that I find interesting too when you research the vrilya and the power of the vril, they talk about how they have these staffs, these vril staffs, which they use to channel their energy and help focus their telekinetic powers. And these staffs are, well, they're roughly as tall as the vril themselves, but with the holder is able to change both the size and shape at will. So it could shrink down even to a handheld size, which of course we're going to talk about later when we discuss the Easter egg. Now they say with the fire that's embedded in the vril staff, that even in the hands of a child, that power can be used to cleave the strongest of fortresses. Now, of course, the reason why they're saying this is to show that a full-grown vril could easily wipe out, the entire eastern seaboard if he wanted to. But I also think it's interesting that they chose the word child because, as we know, Sam is obviously controlling the zombies through the use of element 115. So we see sort of connections between the story of the book and our storyline of the zombies. Some other interesting things to note before we move on past the vrilya is that in later works, people have talked about possible connections between the vril and being the descendants of Atlantis. Another interesting thing, too, is how a lot of people like to link the vrilya and their subterranean tunnels to the hollow earth theory of Agartha. And, of course, we're going to talk more about Agartha when we get to Shangri-La. So let's talk about where we're at right now. We're in Siberia at some sort of Soviet base, some sort of Soviet research facility. And we know that it's either connected with Group 935 or there's a larger corporation, obviously Illuminati comes to mind right away, or some other form of dummy corporation that the Illuminati would hide behind that would connect to both Group 935 and this place. So maybe this isn't actually directly connected to Group 935, that is to say maybe Maxis wasn't in charge of these people, considering this is in Russia and they were in Germany. But there is definitely a connection, and the reason why I say that is because two reasons. One, there's a picture of this place, a picture that has a lighthouse and a ship in it on the wall in Derice. And it's been there the whole time, too, which is crazy. That means that all this storyline was worked out way ahead of time. And then the other reason, too, is because of the scavenger. When you pack-a-punch it, it becomes the hyena infradead. And, of course, hyena, H. Yena, is Harvey Yena's name with the first initial. And Harvey Yena, if we remember from the older videos, is the guy that was working with the DG2 at Verut and then later at Shinonuma, and who I believe created the pack-a-punch version, the DG3JZ. And of course, after Shinonuma, either after Shinonuma or before Verut, he must have worked here as well in order for him to create the Scavenger's pack-a-punched version. Now, I mean, chances are it was after Shinonuma. The only reason why I say maybe it could have been before Verut is because we obviously see the connection through the photograph with with the Derice facility and this facility. Now, this facility wasn't just being used to work on the Scavenger and its pack-a-punched version. It wasn't just for weapon testing. We see on the tanker that is we obviously have the ship and then we have the tanker, and the tanker's been ripped in half. Now the tanker's been here for a while. It didn't come with the crew, it didn't come with George or the characters. And we can tell this obviously by the intro. They're filming the movie, and if you wrecked your ship and possibly screwed up your way home for most of your crew, you probably wouldn't be too keen on filming a couple of scenes real quick before you phoned home. So we know that this was here beforehand, and the small ship that's brought up next to it is how all the characters got here, all the actors and George and everybody. But on the tanker, we see that they were traveling, or not traveling, but shipping people. Whether they were living or dead or already turned into zombies is unclear. But if you look inside all of the giant crates that they have on the tanker, there are these, they're not really seats, but there's like wall-mounted straps that are clearly made for a person to be strapped into and put into some sort of stasis with, all these wires that would obviously stick into them to keep them alive. So these people were being brought here for some reason, and my guess is that they were either going to be turned into zombies or they were already zombies in order to do the research on the VR-11 and figure out a way to actually turn people who were already zombies back into human beings through the use of the VR-11 and its pack-a-punched version called Lazarus, which all of the people familiar with the Bible will know Lazarus was the man Jesus brought back from the dead. So there's a little joke right there. Now, the VR-11, the real interesting thing about that is because if you remember, I was talking about the Vril Society back during Kino and in Derice, and the Vril Society was this group of people who believed that we originally came from the stars, from this one in particular star, the Bullseye, which is the Eye of Taurus. And not the star itself, of course, a planet around there. And they wanted to create a spaceship that would be able to bring them back. And that's why they teamed up with the Nazis in order to get funding and create these flying saucers. And 10 of the 11 proposed flying saucers were created, and they were all codenamed VR-1, VR-2, all the way up to VR-11, which supposedly was going to be a spaceship, but we have no drawings of it or anything. It was only talked about as going to be the next step, whatever it was. And obviously, Treyarch took a little bit of liberty there, but I think it's kind of neat, kind of interesting that they threw that in, that we have this called the VR-11, and they're using the same code names that the Vril Society used for their flying saucers and for all of their projects, VR-1, VR-2, etc., etc. Now, as it inevitably happens with all other zombie facilities, an outbreak occurs here, and a bunch of people are killed. And the tanker runs aground, all hell breaks loose, that sort of thing. Now, it's possible that there was actually a mission to salvage the tanker and possibly any other technology here by some other group. The reason why I say that, of course, is the scuba zombies. Now, I call them the scuba zombies because it does look like they're wearing a scuba suit with the regulator on the front, or whatever that thing is called. Another possible solution to why we have those zombies is if that isn't a scuba suit, those could be the suits that the people had to wear in order to be hooked up to the walls of the inside of the crates that are on the tanker. And that's how they were transported from wherever else, possibly Derice or somewhere else, to here for the research for the VR-11 to continue. Now, let's fast forward to 2011, and George and company makes their way here to film a movie, and out of nowhere, a real-life zombie pops out of one of the caverns in the walls, strangely enough, just like the caverns in the book, in the Vril book. And so this zombie pops out of the cave, picks up George Romero, and runs off. And what happens next is somehow George is possessed by Sam, and she has given him powers to sort of be like the Pentagon thief almost. Not in the sense that he doesn't steal our weapons, of course, but he's here specifically to impede our actions and to prevent us from retrieving the golden rod and bringing it to Richtofen and everybody that's locked up in the safe. Now that brings us to our four characters, and why are they locked up in the safe? What's happened there? Now, if you remember the last time we saw them, they were at Ascension, which it takes place in November of 1963. And when they're there, they still have the DG2 with them, even though the DG2 does not work. The Wunderwaffe does not work when they're at Ascension. That's why, of course, we can't use it in Kino and we can't use it in Ascension. Because the very first time we used the Pack-a-Punched DG2, it caused the teleporter to overload and sent us through time and space, or space and time, or whatever. We ended up moving forward in time. And now it appears that for whatever reason we left Ascension and came here, specifically here, because Richtofen's not surprised that we got here. He's only surprised that we again overshot the time and ended up inside of a safe. Now, why did we overshoot? I believe it's because the DG2, which had been, malfunctioning, so to speak, for the last two maps, refired up, let's call it, or rebooted or something like that. And of course it lost its Pack-a-Punched power, but it now works again. And that's sort of what overloaded the circuitry this time and sent us a little bit forward in time, more than we wanted to go. So now we end up here in 2011 instead of whenever it is exactly that Richtofen meant for us to get here. Now, why are we inside the safe? Obviously the teleporter was here and originally linked to Group 935. Another reason why it seems Group 935's Derice facility and this facility are supposed to be connected. And then the other reason why the teleporter is locked up and put away, I think at least, is because the people that we're coming to meet came here at the originally chosen time. We weren't there, and they must have assumed that we had been transported too far forward in time. And so they decided to lock up the teleporter so nothing would happen. And so then when we got here, we would be able to get out somehow, contact them, and get the golden rod. Now, who are they? Who are these people that I'm talking about? These people who seem to know everything that we're doing and are somehow connected? Well, who else could it be but the Illuminati? The Illuminati, who I'm sure have many subs, including the one that's parked outside in the ocean with the green light, was in contact with Richtofen the whole time. Now let's back up and talk about Richtofen's plan. Now, if you recall in some of my older videos, I talk about how every map is the next step in his plan. And so each step of the way, he's bringing us there for a certain reason. Because the three of us, of course, meaning Dempsey, Takio, and Nikolai, we have no memory. We don't know what's going on. We're just following the leader. And so if we start with Shinonuma, we see his plan starting to unfold. If you recall, Richtofen first appears along with Takio and Nikolai in Shinonuma. Dempsey's been with us from the very beginning. Now we go to Shinonuma right after we kill Maxis and Sam, which of course we were told to by the Illuminati in a note. After we leave there, we have to, for some reason, pick up the DG2. After we get the DG2 from Shinonuma, we return to Derice, where we then Pack-a-Punch it, again for an unknown reason, and then take it to Kino, where, in theory, the unknown reason should have revealed itself. But because the DG2 was Pack-a-Punched, the power overloaded the teleporter and sent us hurtling through both time and space. So now we're in Kino, but we're in Kino in the future, and whatever we were looking for wasn't there. Now, somehow Richtofen is able to infer that we need to head to the Ascension group in order to get the last few pieces of the puzzle. And that's, of course, why we go to Ascension. Now, the reason why I think Richtofen believes everything to be at the Ascension group is because when we get there, Richtofen is in a spacesuit on Ascension. So obviously he thought that after we got to Ascension, the very next step would be going to the moon, which of course is our next map, not the map following Ascension. Or not the map following Ascension. So it would seem that once we got to the Ascension, there still were missing pieces. All that we really found was the journal. Once we found the journal, it helped Richtofen to use the teleporter to send us through time again to here. But why did we come here? Well, if you recall from Ascension, the Illuminati symbols appear on the screens above the box monitors. So this means, I think at least, that sometime during Ascension, Richtofen is able to recontact the Illuminati and let them know what's happened to us, and through the process, they let him know what happened to the goldenrod, as well as everything else we may need in order to get us to Moon. So it's from this interaction between him and the Illuminati that he now learns that the next stop we need to go to is Siberia, to this location here. Now that we're here and we discover that we're trapped inside of a safe, we got to figure out some way to get the goldenrod, and we're just hoping that even though we're late, it's still around. Well, it's not exactly around. It just so happens to be that it's not locked up, but it's inside of a submarine just offshore. So we get in contact with these 4 actors that are hanging outside of our safe, because we can't, for some reason, we can't break out. We can't unlock the door. So we need them to do the work for us. So we send these guys out, and they go out, and they turn on the radios and find the right numbers to turn on the nodes to activate the lighthouse, and then they use the Morse code coming from the submarine in order to figure out which levers to pull and everything to, I guess, create the right frequency so that the submarine can send out that green glowing light in order to transport the goldenrod into the lighthouse after we sacrifice one of the humans. Now, why do we have to sacrifice somebody? I don't really know why it's a necessity, but it could be that we need someone that's been filled with element 115, that's had their makeup manipulated by the element in order to create the goldenrod. And of course, the goldenrod, which if you look at the actual goldenrod in the game, it looks very much like this metaphysical chanting tool that's used by Tibetan monks, and it's sort of to focus your energy when you're meditating. But it's very similar, I think, at least in idea, to the vril staffs, which were used to channel their telekinetic energy when they used the power of the vril. And like I said before, the vril staff can be changed in both shape and size by the will of the person holding it. So this very possibly could be a vril staff, or at least it's linking the 2 stories together. The other thing I think that's really interesting about this is the green light. It's the same exact green light that we see surrounding all of our power-ups and drops, as well as the same green light that was surrounding the teddy bear and whatever else, the teddy bear and the monkey and stuff like that, as part of the flytrap Easter egg in Doris. And of course, I've mentioned this before, but the flytrap was the testing facility. In real life, it was supposed to be the testing facility of Die Glock, the Bell, which was an anti-gravity machine. And so now the Illuminati have some sort of device that works similar, or that is the actual flytrap device on their submarine. So it's clear now, we can start to really see the Illuminati connection between all these different groups and how they sort of have their hands in everybody's pockets and are able to access all this different technology. So now the Illuminati have given us the goldenrod, has given it to the actors, and the actors bring it to Richtofen. And so now Richtofen has finally gotten one of the pieces of the puzzle that he was searching for originally at Kino, which of course all these pieces were scattered after the war, after Kino was ransacked by all the different, all the different countries, by America, by Russia, etc., etc. And so now we have the goldenrod in our hand, and we're able to teleport off to the next place, the next step of the way, where we have to find the last piece of the puzzle before we're able to travel on to our final destination. But we no longer need the DG2 anymore because we have the goldenrod instead, which is a much more powerful device. And so what do we do now that we have the working DG2 again? Well, we don't need it. We might as well just toss it to these guys, and who knows, maybe it'll help them survive the horde of zombies out in this cold, cold weather. And the very last thing that I think we should talk about as far as Call of the Dead is concerned are the radios. There are 5 radios, and I've mentioned them before in several other videos because they pertain to the storyline at different parts. But let's just go over them again just for fun, shall we? We'll start with the first one that's dated September 2nd, 1945. And in this, Richtofen is talking about the trust barrier that's trying to get past. And this, of course, is obviously having to do with his research, his experiments with mind control that he's doing with the living test subjects, Nikolai, Takio, and the Mexican, who actually is now no longer living, and of course will eventually be replaced by Tank Dempsey. Now he's trying to figure out some way to create mind control. And he's assuming that there's some sort of trust barrier that he has to break past. And he seems to be trying everything he possibly can, even looking inside of the spleen in order to find it. And of course it is not in the spleen, as we find out according to the radio. And apparently what has happened is the spleen of the Mexican has actually been ripped out of his body and is now lying on the floor, where some monkey runs up and grabs it and runs away. Now that seems really familiar. I just can't seem to place it. A monkey running up and grabbing something off the ground from him and running away. Anyway, I don't know. I guess we'll talk about that more when we get to Shangri-La. And then the next radio is dated September 10th, and he talks about the spy at Verut that's going to be brought to him. And of course, that spy, as we know, is Peter McCain, who was an American spy, and may possibly have some connections to the Illuminati, of course, because of the Illuminati writing that he put up on the wall at Verut. How else would he know the code, unless he was connected to the Illuminati? Now, the next one after this, the third radio, is dated September 17th, and this is after the gameplay at Verut takes place, and Richtofen, well, actually, Dempsey himself appears in the radio message. So we see that Dempsey has been taken from Verut, I guess, because they couldn't find Peter there or whatever. Whenever whoever went in to Verut, they discovered the 4 Marines, Tank being one of them. And so now he is the replacement for the vessel. At least that's what it sounds like Richtofen says. He's the replacement for the vessel. So not exactly sure what that might mean, but it may have something to do with the fact that our 3 characters are here helping Richtofen for more than just being an extra set of hands. Maybe he needs us, and we're some sort of we're part of the puzzle. We're 3 other pieces to the puzzle and needing the golden rod and whatever we're going to get in Shangri-La, but he also needs us too. So for that we're just going to have to wait and see, I suppose. The next radio message that we hear after that is September 20th, and he talks about how the OSS had sent in a spy, which was Peter, and he talks about how Peter McCain and Harvey Yenna may be connected to the organization. Now, we don't know who the organization is. Maybe he is referring to the OSS. Maybe he's referring to his organization, the Illuminati, because, of course, when you're working for the Illuminati, you never know who also is working for the Illuminati. It's a secret organization. It's got spies and double spies, or not double spies, but double agents and triple agents and all that stuff working for them. So I'm sure there's a lot of times where someone in the Illuminati may be standing right next to someone else and not even know that they're both part of the same group. And then the very last radio message is dated October 1st, and it's about how Maxis is not going to reproduce the DG2 on a mass scale. And of course this upsets Richtofen. Now we know from messages from Doris that it's not Maxis's call, because obviously Maxis wanted to reproduce it on a mass scale to help win the war. But the Reichstag group was the ones that pulled the plug, financially speaking, on Maxis and on the DG2 products. But of course, from listening to this message, from Richtofen, we find out that Richtofen doesn't necessarily, doesn't realize that it's not Maxis's call. And of course, some of the other things the other things that he talks about in the message too is how he knows how he's going to take care of Maxis and how he's going to take care of that little brat, meaning Samantha. And that's going to wrap up all of the radio messages, and it pretty much wraps up Call of Duty as a whole for us, or not Call of Duty, Call of the Dead as a whole for us. And now we only have one more storyline video for me to do before Moon comes out, so we're gonna be seeing Shangri-La within the next few days. And of course, I haven't forgotten the video where I'm going to show y'all how I go through the maps and research all these different things. I have planned it. Y'all voted last time on what map y'all wanted to see me work on, and it looks like everybody's picked Doris. Doris seems to be the most popular, so I am going to go back and show y'all step by step exactly how I would break down a map, and look for all the different clues that are put in there by Treyarch, and then take that and research online and make my guess at least as to what's important, what's not important, how things might fit together, and and what all of it really means. So then that way, when we get to the next season, if you will, or the next storyline, whatever it may be, however it may connect to this storyline, when we get on to the next one, you'll be researching the videos yourself. So until next time, guys, peace out.
Years ago, I did research for a World War II movie. I came across some old Nazi documents. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Element 115, necromancers, raising the dead, real creepy stuff.
We're completely surrounded! Come on!
The coolest thing? Some of that crazy shit happened right here.